Hi y'all, my name is Katie Kazik and I'm a homeschooling mom of 5, and these are my top tips on how to get started with homeschooling. With all the craziness going on and all the decisions to be made this school year, I figure knowing where to start is going to be the hardest thing, especially when it comes to homeschooling. So these are what I found to be the easiest and best options available. Let me know your best options in the comments below. But here we go. Tip number 1. Ask around. Find some homeschooling mom friends or just homeschooling friends in general and ask them what way they like to homeschool. For example, there are several different kinds. There's unschooling, there's Charlotte Mason, I believe, there's curriculum-based, there's secular curriculum-based, there's non-secular curriculum-based, there's online, hard paper, there's hands-off, hands-on. There's so many different, there's Montessori, there's all these different kinds of homeschooling methods out there. Do a little research and figure out which way fits best for your family, because not all of them are going to fit. For example, I thought that my children were going to fit better and best into a curriculum-based homeschooling. And come to find out, my kids are more of an unschooling / curriculum-based, but a very hands-off curriculum, if that makes sense. So I started with a really intense curriculum where it was amazing. I loved the curriculum and I loved all that it taught and I loved how it pushed my children, but my kids took a lot of time to do that, and technically with the grades that they're in, we shouldn't have been spending anything over 3 hours a day on homeschooling, and we were spending almost 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours homeschooling every single day. It made it impossible for me to do my schoolwork, and I had to stop. And so originally I thought I was going to put them in a private school, and then before all the coronavirus stuff came out, we decided to go ahead and use an all-online curriculum instead. So now, instead of having it where I'm in control of everything, they're in control of their own education. And I know that sounds like a bit extreme, but if you think about it, it's very much an unschooling concept where they're in control, they get to choose what they learn, when they learn it. Now, don't get me wrong, I have the core subjects that they have to learn, and then anything extra is their choice. So they learn piano on their choice, and they learn on their time frame and when they want to. They learn Spanish when they want to. They learn, I have one who's super into science, and so he'll go on and he'll look on YouTube for science videos. I have one who struggles in math, so she goes online and she goes on YouTube and she finds math videos. So, I mean, we kind of just find what works best for us and do it for that day. Because of our curriculum, I'm also able to get my kids to complete 1 whole week's worth of curriculum in a day. So we only homeschool 1 day a week for each kid. So I'm not stressing out about getting all this stuff done because it's all on them. And they do their whole week in 1 day and they call it good, and they don't have to stress about doing anything else for the week. It's amazing and my kids love it. It's the best thing I've ever heard before. Tip number 2, come up with a schedule or no schedule at all. Whatever works best for your family. So at first I was like, we have to come up with a schedule, a strict schedule like we do at school, right? I was like, we have to run it like a school. We have to do this so that they don't think that they're not, doing schoolwork or all this other jazz. And I found that my kids essentially were just not having it. They would just break down on me and they wouldn't do what they were supposed to. And so it was just really overwhelming, especially for my pre-K / kindergartner, because my kids are a little ahead. They were kind of mix match there. And so we had to figure out what schedule worked best for us. And like I said, what works best for us is that my kids do all their online schoolwork 1 day at a time. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we all do schoolwork. And then after that, if someone wants to work on the next week, they can. Otherwise, I'm not going to sit there and push them. It's their choice, their decision, their opportunity, their education. And I love that my kids are willing to go ahead and push themselves further, but I understand that some kids aren't willing to do that either. So just find what works best for your family and what works best for your state, because also tip number 3 is look into state laws. Where I live, the state laws are super lax. They're like, we don't care. You don't have to keep attendance. You don't have to keep grades. You don't have to do any of this. And so I'm like, sweet. score 10 for the home team. I don't have to worry about all that jazz. But there are some states that are super, super strict. So make sure you look into the laws for your state. Because if you need a cover school, find a cover school. If you need to make sure you're turning in test scores and attendance and all that other stuff, or if they need to be taking a monthly test or a bi-monthly test, I think that sometimes they have to test like every semester in some states. Make sure you're up to date on all of those, because that is going to be key and very crucial to their education. Tip number 4 is I highly recommend doing lots of reading. We found a really good program that introduces phonics, but it introduces it in a different way, and I really, really love it. And I love the fact that it breaks it down and gives like the spelling rules, and they give the different vowel sounds, and they give like the letter combinations and all the different sounds that go with that letter combination and when you wouldn't use that letter combination sound. And so it's really, really intriguing, and I love the way it breaks it down. It makes it super simple for my kids. In fact, my first grader reads better than my third grader does, not just because of the fact that she's a girl, but because she was able to learn these things, whereas he wasn't. So now, like, he has to go back a lot of times, and I have to be like, remember, we have to go back and do this because you didn't learn the phonics base for it. You just learned this is what it is, and this is how it is kind of thing. You didn't learn why behind it. You just learned that it is there. So I highly recommend finding a good phonics and reading system for your children. Now, some people don't do well with that. Dang. I have something called Read and Learn with the classics, and I think that, or with classic stories, and this is more for like, what's it called? More for cognitive. Comprehension, the comprehension part side of things. So it's really nice to be able to read the story and have them read the story with me. I can have them read like the Mother Goose rhymes and learn from those rhymes instead of trying to figure out little or new stories all the time. Tip number 5 is I highly recommend going easy. So the first year, you do need to have at least like a 2-month break from when they were in school to when you're homeschooling, because that break is going to unschool them essentially. It's going to, or deschool them, I think is what it's called. But that break, you don't have to be doing like field trips. You don't have to be doing like extracurricular things. You can literally just lay around the house and be like, okay, let's find little ways to see how you learn, because that 2-month break is actually a really good time to find what ways your children learn. Because I have one that's a very hands-on learner, and she has to see things. She's very visual. Whereas I have another one who is just very quick, just really quick. He doesn't need much help at all, and he just picks up on things really, really easily. And I have another one where he is pushed by competition. So he's so close in age to his older sibling that he is driven more to be like, ooh, I want to do better than her. I want to be better than her. I want to, you know what I'm saying? I want to know what she knows. And so it makes my life a lot easier because he's like, let's just go kind of thing. And, but they all learn in their own ways. And so I highly recommend having that break just so you can see how your children learn and just so you can see how you like to teach. Because honestly, I thought that I would like teaching from a curriculum. I hate it. I really do. I absolutely hate it. That's why we switched to the online stuff, was because I felt like I was becoming more of a mean and aggressive mother and homeschool teacher. And I was like, I don't want to be that person. I don't think that that's right. And so tip number 5, find a curriculum, at least I think this is 5, it might be 6, but find a curriculum that works best for your family. Find a curriculum that fits your needs and not the opposite way around. What I mean by that is I go all online for my curriculum, except for the spelling, which I bought these really cheap books off of Amazon. They're like $5 each. Each one of my kids have it. Not this exact same workbook, but like I have a kindergarten one that teaches like just letters, and you write in letters. And as the year progresses, It teaches them how to spell words, and that is their spelling for the year. That is their spelling practice and their spelling words. They're learning sight words the whole year, and I love it. It's an amazing, amazing concept, and I think it's perfect for my youngest, my kindergartner, because he's still working on those letters and putting everything together and like working on what the words are. And so I think that's even better than having like an actual spelling list for him. And then my first grader has the spelling weekly practice that I just showed you. And those are, they have 2 days worth of activities that they can do. And then I print off 2 more days. And then on Friday, we have a spelling test. So we have a regular like schedule when it comes to that. And then my oldest has Sylvan, at least I think that's what that is. But I love it for him because it has it where it's like 4 days worth of activities, and on the 5th day, I get to give him a spelling test. And I'm like, this is perfect. It works out perfectly. And it teaches them words they need to know for their age group, which is even better in my opinion. So keep that in mind. And try to go with the flow with your children. So like I said earlier, I have one that struggles in math. I have another that struggles in history because he doesn't always comprehend his reading very well. And then my other, he does really well across the board, except for he's a lazy reader. So he knows how to read, but if you make him read too much, he refuses to do it for you. And so you just have to kind of play with it, see what curriculum works best. Sometimes you have to mix match curriculums. Some people are able to stay with one whole curriculum the whole time. Some people have to mix match, and that's what I do. I like a lot of the hands-off stuff, like I said before, just because, like I said, it makes it so it takes a lot of the pressure off of me. I can do my schoolwork while they're doing their schoolwork, and then I can help them out whenever I'm done with what I need to do, and we can just kind of play around with things throughout the day. So those are my top tips. Honestly, those are the top things that I would recommend. Oh, also, another thing I would say is get your kids outside daily. They need to have 3 to 4 hours of outside playtime every single day, which is totally doable with the simple fact that they're technically only supposed to be doing like 3, maybe 6 hours of schooling max. Actually, I don't even think it's supposed to be 6. I'll have to research that. I'll have to look that up again because I'm pretty sure even in high school, they're run on their own time schedule. And so like they can do their own work when they want to kind of thing. And their work should only take, I think, about 5 hours, maybe 6 max. So 3 to 6 hours, depending on what your ages are for your children. And honestly, my kids are done. My kindergartner does, like I said, his whole week's worth of schooling in one day, and that takes him about 3 hours, two maybe 3 hours. So, like, honestly, they only have 30 minutes of work max they're supposed to be doing at kindergarten. First grade, I believe, is supposed to be like up to 45 minutes to an hour and stuff like that. So I know that my oldest son, he's only supposed to be doing like 3 hours worth of schoolwork. And if he were to do his history, like if he were to actually sit down and read his history work and pass the test for them, he would, sorry, they're trying to yell at each other. My 2-year-old's trying to get my 5-year-old's attention. But if he were to sit down and actually like read through the lessons and then pay attention to the questions that were asked, because of his ADHD and ODD, he tends to just kind of skip around and skim through things. That's another thing you have to be careful of. Or the kids that tend to skim, they're not going to comprehend as much, and they have to work twice as hard because of that. So take that into consideration. These guidelines for how long children should be taking might be different for your child because of the simple fact that they have extra things that they have to worry about. So like my ADHD child, he has a really hard time focusing. So history is his hardest subject because there is more reading in our curriculum for history than any other subject. Even his reading, they teach him and they break it down how to read and how to understand and how to comprehend what you're reading, but then he can't apply it to another subject. Does that make sense? I don't know if that completely makes sense. Because of his ADHD, he just like switches. He's like, and I want to get done. And I want to get done now. And so he just answers questions instead of going back and like using it like an open book quiz kind of thing. Which is fine, except for he doesn't always read the material. He skims through it, like I said. So if you have those kind of issues, take that in consideration whenever you are thinking about like timeline and how long things should take your kids. And just be flexible. Because that is my number one tip. Like if you did nothing else, And sorry, there was a car slowing down. My kids are outside. But if you are doing nothing else, be flexible. Don't be so worried about finishing the school year. Don't be so worried about doing it on your timeline. Be flexible to their timeline, because they need certain things that we don't always know about, and they have certain things that we're not always aware of. And so just keep that in mind. It's not always about us. It's not always about what we feel is more important. It's about what's easiest for them. And some kids some of the kids don't understand certain things when they're supposed to. It all clicks at different times for different kids. And so, like, reading just clicked for one of my kids all of a sudden. Math is sort of kind of, an abstract kind of concept for one of my children. And it's slowly clicking. Like, if you explain it just the right way, it clicks. And it's like, okay, now we can do this kind of thing. So just keep that in mind. Not everyone's going to learn everything at the same pace, and that's okay. That's the beauty of homeschooling, is that we can take our time and we can make it so that it's applicable to each and every one of our children, instead of worrying about why they're not doing the things that they're supposed to be doing. I know I was super stuck on that for the first year, and this year I'm just like, well, we'll kind of go with the flow. Whatever my kids want to do, we'll do, but, it is what it is. But just, remember that not everyone is going to do what you feel like is the most important thing. They're going to do it at their own pace, and they're going to follow through with what they need when they need it. And so keep that in mind. Have fun with this. Don't sit there and stress about everything, and just relax. Take a deep breath, and remember that you know what's best for your children no matter what. Go and follow their cues. And so, hope you guys have a good week. Once again, drop your tips on how you would start homeschooling and what you would look into and what you would like to know for homeschooling and for how to start homeschooling in the comments below, and I will see what I can do about answering those questions. Thank you so much for watching, and like, subscribe, and share if this helped you at all, and we'll see you next week.